My name is Stonewall Hunter III, better known as Trey Hunter. I am co-owner and co-founder of The Academy Fitness and Sports, as well as co-commissioner of MCAL, Monroe City Academy League. I am from Monroe, Louisiana.
My name is Tyree Hollins. I'm co-owner, co-founder of the Academy Fitness and Sports. I'm also the co-commissioner of Monroe City Academy League, and I'm from Monroe, Louisiana. My family dynamic was a typical at-risk environment, single-parent household. It was 5 of us. My mom had 4 boys and 1 girl. I have an older sister. I grew up in a Booker T community on the east side of town in Monroe, Louisiana. In that environment, we saw things that we shouldn't have saw, as far as domestic violence, drugs, gun violence, different things like that. But my mom, one thing she did do was do a great job of trying to keep us isolated, where we didn't have to become a product of that environment.
My family dynamic and upbringing was kind of typical of the large black family, mixed. Had 2 moms and a dad. I got 7 siblings, 6 sisters, and 1 younger brother. I lived with my mom until middle school, then moved with my dad from there on up. Kind of always the sports family, of course, from my uncles to every cousin and relative, always involved in sports, heavy into growing sports and that kind of thing.
School as a child for me, again, like I spoke previously about being in an at-risk environment, it wasn't something that I had to do or was forced to do. So with that being said, I had missed out on a lot of school as a young kid, just because I wasn't forced to go. And anytime that I felt like I didn't want to go, I really didn't have to, or I probably would just walk out the back door and act like I was going to school, but didn't end up going.
I can't necessarily say I didn't like it. I just kind of always knew it was necessary. Motivated as a kid, older siblings and cousins all go to school, so it's kind of one of those things that I know I have to do. So for me, my whole family are sports oriented, but my dad and uncles are all basketball guys. So as a young kid, that was kind of like my heart. My first love was basketball. But honestly, for the reality of football becoming a job or be able to help me get to the next level, let's say like a college scholarship, was really in 10th grade, where I went to the basketball school, Richwood, but it's full of hoopers. There's hoopers everywhere, from one end to the next. But I got my opportunity in varsity football earlier, so it made it where it was real for the next opportunity.
I knew I wanted to be a professional football player in 2007. I think LSU was playing in the national championship game, and I was watching that game in my room, and I remember literally shedding tears when LSU won the national championship game. And I always told myself, I said I was going to go to college and I was going to be a Tiger. In the beginning, it was kind of dark. I was trying to transition out of my dark stages, leaving out of junior high. I actually had got put up from the 7th to the 9th grade because it was this like no child left behind deal, just because I was really old in junior high. So when I first got to high school, that transition was a little dark. I lacked confidence just because, again, I had lacked the basics. Of the educational form of things. This man by the name of Eldon Pipes came along. He was an AAU coach, and he kind of introduced me to the finer things in life. He kind of let me know that I was important, that you could be successful, that you don't have to be a product of your environment. And once I started to realize that, I just started to carry a different swagger about myself. My play on the football field had enhanced a lot. And then, I started scoring touchdowns, and, you start feeling yourself, your ego start to get big. And I just felt like I was that guy then.
High school at Richwood was amazing, to be honest. I had a fun 4 years from sports in general. Basketball was turned in the entire city of Monroe during that time. As well as our competitive rivals, got to beat up on Cara a little bit, make some plays. Make friendships as well just through competition. But again, had a lot of influential coaches besides my family, which were my uncles that coached at Richwood too. So Coach Beach, just to name one in particular, was a man that literally helped push me every day on the sense of getting the best out of me, the most out of me, letting me see and reach my potential, not just in football, but literally every day, walking through the halls. You know, he'd literally say, stay focused, just walking through the halls. So a lot of stuff like that motivated me to not only be a leader within the locker room or the lines, but walking through the halls in Richwood.
So why did you choose ULM?
So going into my senior year, I had about 6 or 7 Division I offers in that summer, which were all I was taking seriously at the time. So it was UAB, ULM, South Alabama, to name a few just off the top of my head. Memphis, they were all, like I say, they were all in the top of competition. But as it dwindled down, a lot of different changes started happening. Memphis lost coaches, UAB lost coaches. So it was a lot of different changes that left stuff in the air for me. And so I actually lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a couple of years when I was younger growing up, which gangland, they call it Thug Town, where Bloods and Crips still bang like the 90s today. So that was literally one of my weighing down schools towards the end. And coming up to going on my official visit, my daddy was like, nah, you can't go back to Tulsa, especially being a young man. And I had some ties, some family that still lived in Tulsa. That was just one of those things that he wasn't letting happen. So literally coming down to signing day, it was between UAB, South Alabama, and ULM. So my visit to ULM was literally not just at home locally, but it was like home. It was more so. I seen a lot of the future of the things that we potentially could change from me being in the city, and that'll be beneficial not just for myself, but for a lot of cats that was in the area at the time. So at that time, man, I prayed about it a lot, and honestly, it was one of the toughest decisions I made. But even with hindsight, I don't regret it not once, man. That was some of the best years of my life, being able to play in front of the crib.
Grambling for me, it wasn't my first option. I actually had verbal committed to Memphis. Memphis ended up going through some coaches changes and whatnot. And then I wasn't a full qualifier. So with me not being a full qualifier, they ended up pulling the scholarship away from me when they got the new coaches that came in. And that was, Grambling was the only team that came back and showed its interest. Offensive coordinator at this time, Coach Leahy, came and sat in my mom's living room, and that was the first time that a coach has ever came into my mom's house or even came to my games to watch me the way he watched me. So I ended up going on my visit there. Man, it was home. It was home. I had a really great time just being around, people of your kind. And, that last day of my official visit, that's when I committed to Grambling, and I have no regrets at all. It's probably one of the best decisions that I ever made. Attending the HBCU at the Grambling State University, where everybody is somebody with a fee sheet, was probably, again, one of the best experiences ever. When I say that, I say because just more so being more culturally competent. At Grambling, you had 100 different shades of blacks. You had people from Cali, you had people from Chicago, Texas, Louisiana, and we were all our own different people. And for us to be able to come in, and express ourselves, I think that's one thing I learned about being at Grambling, where you can really express yourself and you can be who you are, and nobody really judge you for being that. So yeah, that's what it was like.
What was undergrad like, essentially going to PWI?
Even though it was PWI, a lot of people gonna hate me for this one. Hey, we was HBCULM, where all the black people, whether it was Greek, whether you played sports or whatever, or you was just a black kid on campus, man, we kind of had our own environment that more so made it feel more like home, apart from the white society of school that we were in. Then me being a cat from Monroe, I was at home for 5 years, but I wasn't at home. If I was at ULM, I was at school. Like, I'm at school. So school and Monroe, totally different things. ULM is not in Monroe. ULM is ULM. So when we're talking about parties or just campus get-togethers as a whole, even to the sporting events, no matter the sport, I always felt like I wasn't in home. I wasn't in Monroe. I wasn't at home. So even despite some hard seasons or lack of resources that we went through at ULM during my time, man, it was really amazing. I definitely wouldn't say I took full advantage of a lot of the things that were around, but man, we had fun. Definitely grew and competed, learned some stuff. I became culturally open, still being at home, just from foreign exchange students and stuff like that I was able to encounter through ULM. And undergrad was definitely a good time.
Me not making the NFL roster it wasn't a big disappointment, but it was a disappointment just because I knew how hard I had worked to get to that point. So when I did end up going to a minicamp invite to the New York Giants, I thought that was my golden opportunity to take advantage of this opportunity, not knowing really the political side of it and just knowing that you just a number there. By the time that, I did get released after 3 days being there, it kind of it brought me into a mirror where I had to look myself and just say, what could you have done better? And like Trey talked about the accountability, there was some accountability things that I could have done to possibly make me become to make that roster. But me personally, I thought I did everything that I could. Just from a childhood to that time then. But again, I was always blessed and fortunate with something else, a contract that explored other options for me.
It definitely was tough. At one point, it was a dark time in a sense of not extreme disappointment, but only more so of kind of having regret of myself, or kind of looking back and trying to hold myself accountable. But at that time, I was still in it, so I couldn't see what I needed to be accountable for, or what I needed to change, why I didn't get a better opportunity, things like that. But it definitely was a eye opener all at the same time, because what you expect is not always what you get. Of course, we knew that or know that growing up or through different situations, but it was more so where it was put real in my face about a major milestone could have been, and kind of refocused me in a sense.
Life in the CFL, again, I spoke about being released from the New York Giants after being there 3 days. I had this contract to go to the CFL. So when I flew across the border, of course, it was a culture shock for me. I did my first 2 years in Saskatchewan, with Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Saskatchewan is more so of a rural development area type deal, and the people was really friendly. The fan base was crazy. We played under like 60, 70,000 people every game we played in. But just more so just the culture, like Trey talked about, the culture down there with Caucasians, was super friendly. Like they would give you their car to have for 6 months while you're down there, give you their house, and they'll go move in a hotel just so therefore you'll be comfortable. It was a great experience being in Saskatchewan. After I got released from Saskatchewan, I went on and played 2 years in Montreal with the Montreal Alouettes. Montreal was a little different. It was mainly French-speaking, a French-speaking Providence. But I really enjoyed myself at Montreal. It was a city-like feel.
So describe that feeling when you just knew this was the end of professional football for you.
When I knew that it was the end playing professional football, when the air was going out of the ball, I had got released from Montreal. That was my second release. I ended up moving to Atlanta, Georgia, where I knew I was going to sign another contract just because I had had a decent year in Montreal. So yeah, I ended up having the opportunity to go to BC, British Columbia, and Vancouver, but they didn't want to give me what I was worth, so I didn't take that deal. Well, when I didn't take that deal, another deal didn't come back across. I'm training, I'm in Atlanta, I'm training, I'm working. My daughter at the time was 2 years old. My wife had just started teaching out there. So after I got done training, and I didn't get a call back from that upcoming season about a future contract. Again, it was one of those, go look yourself in the mirror and see what's next for you. So at this time, that's when I was still in Atlanta, Georgia, wanting to do community involvement deal stuff and also training. So that's when a light came on in my head. It was like, go back to your hometown. At this time, my wife was pregnant with my second daughter. And I, like Trey said, I just didn't want to go back through that politics side of trying to get a contract and then possibly being able to be released. So I literally had that talk with my wife, and I was just like, I'm going to use this same energy that I used in football into the real world. And once I made that in my mind, of course, it was a process and phase into that. But once I made my mind up in it, I just started using that same energy that I used towards the game in a real world. And I had to accept it, and I accepted it.
It was definitely tough because it was not planned. Of course, like most of the time it goes, not planned at all. So I was in Winnipeg for beginning of that rookie year up until about week 3 or 4, was released off injury. So that was a dark and hard time, pulled my hamstring for the second time. After rehab, worked so hard to get back healthy. Got signed to Ottawa, literally was cut before I made it out of the airport. Just off national numbers, just how political it is, where I'm literally sitting waiting to be cleared from U.S. into Canada, and they call me, hey, did you make it in? I'm like, yeah, I'm still at the airport. Well, man, sorry to tell you, we had to cut you just to make room for national numbers. I'm like, well, I'm here. So at that point, I basically had a round robin of a couple of different workouts with different teams in the CFL, where it was kind of the same thing. It was I got brought up again to a workout in New York, getting ready to work out for Toronto. Same thing, literally signed the deal, and before I could even turn it in, or before it was turned into the GM, it was kind of the same thing regarding numbers. So after that, I took a IFL, Indoor Football League arena contract with the Quad City Steamwheelers. That was in Moline, Illinois. Had a great year playing up there with Coach Ross. Just to get film, of course. Literally had a good time in indoor league. Money was definitely a different factor at that time. Trying to get back to a Canadian roster. So literally leaving after rookie year in the NFL, or first year in the IFL. Coming back to a list of workouts again. It was kind of, I didn't want to deal with the political side again. So it was more so asking my agent, reaching out to all the resources I had of trying to have somewhere that I could stick. Being in that game, or in this game of politics with professional football, there's definitely nothing that you can know beforehand of somewhere that you have a better chance to stick, or somewhere that you will stick. So it was more so, man, like a deep reflection of the process, and I didn't have a family yet, but more so me and my current wife, but she was my fiance at the time. We were starting to build. We were looking for a home. Literally, it was just kind of time to get ready to get toward to making some different money, man, and not going through the ups and downs of could drive somebody crazy in professional football, where literally you don't know if you're going to be there the next day or even before you make it out of the airport. So, man, it was tough, definitely, of me to say, because I'd already made a commitment of, in college, man, I'm gonna play football until I can't no more. Until if the opportunity is still there and I can still physically do it, I'm gonna play it, or I'm gonna pursue it. So it was more so I've beaten the injuries. I've been tried to hold myself accountable as best as I could and take advantage of all my opportunities. But it was still where it was skating back and forth off of things that you really can't control. So it was, again, a deep reflection, look in the mirror of, man, you've had a great run. You've reached some milestones that a lot of people will never get to touch. You know, seeing some different things, all because of a football. And I just kind of, you know, prayed about it again. And then it was more so that next chapter type of thing where, yeah, I'm never done with football. It's just I'm done with this phase of football. So for training, I kind of fell into it. Probably starting between junior and senior year of college football. Guys that were younger around the area, Cam Lewis that played at LSU, a couple guys around the area. So if we hit the field or posted that we was going to the field today, sometimes they used to come out and we used to kind of do drills together. But that was the first instance or example of me knowing that I could teach somebody under me or teach somebody younger than me some stuff that they didn't know, or which was basically the same things that I learned and was going through currently at ULM. So literally just doing individual drills and stuff like that. And falling into it, so as I was still pursuing CFL opportunities, it was more so a part-time thing of me wanting to give back the knowledge that I was gaining or that I had already gained. So again, with high school cats, with cats that were going into college, you know, trying to bridge those gaps and get them sped up. The same with starting a gym was more so along the same motivation, because the give back the game was all that I ever needed or ever wanted that we didn't get a lot. Man, literally me and my cousin Mike, we kind of learned how to be DBs on our own coming up through high school. We had good high school coaches, but not in the particular sense of growing us as DBs. It was everybody was athletes, you know, or backpedal and catch the ball, you know, but not the specifics of anything that we maybe should have known at that age. And that's all I wanted to give back so cats could be better. Literally, we know the raw talent in the area, and all I could think is if I knew this in 10th grade, like I'd be in a whole nother world right now. Or if I knew this as a freshman coming into high school, but I didn't learn until I was a freshman going into college.
For me, man, it was one of those deals. When I was in college, my whole purpose of going to college and graduating and playing pro ball was always to give hope, especially and being a hopeless kid coming from the environment that I came from, lacking the resources that I came from. It was one of those deals. It was like, it was only right. It was like I was obligated to be able, from my experiences and what I had just achieved and accomplished, that little homie from next door got to experience this. So that's when the training deal started to come about. I started to teach, you know, things that I was taught at college or things that I was taught on a professional level. And it started to make me enhance my knowledge about training and pouring it to kids. I graduated in social work, so my biggest gift is meeting people where they are. So just taking those group of kids out of those environments, pouring into them, meeting them where they are, understanding their strengths, understanding their weaknesses was something I had prided myself about. So with that, again, it led us to falling into the gym, with opening up a gym where now we want to be this factory, we want to be this bridge that these kids can come in and get these resources that honestly they hadn't gotten in years. So after opening the gym, of course, we had attracted some of the top tier talents that was around in this area. Then it brought us back into, okay, what about Lil Bro now? Or what about the princesses that's out of these at-risk environments that don't have youth sports anymore? Because when we got back in, honestly, youth sports besides YMCA hadn't been around for 14 years, right. 10, 15 years. So, me and Trey sat down and we put our brains together, and we, of course, things happen in divine order, but we jumped out there and we opened up MCAL, Monroe City Academy League, where it can be a developmental deal for the kids that's in these environments, or for every kid that's in Monroe in particular. So that's when we kind of opened up the league, and we wanted to make it a developmental approach because we knew that, you know, the kids weren't lacking the developmental side of it. And it was a way for us to be able to continue to tap into those kids and track their progressions from when they started as a kid to now when they become young men and young women.
And with the statement of being too young, man, I'll tell anybody is if they 99, we all children in God's eyes. So definitely can't let somebody else project their fears or their doubts on what we got going, because that's honestly the reason why our area is where it is. You know, of us not being able to complete the mission or come together as one or on a similar accord to be able to plan that mission or plan the outreach, be able to bridge the gap between the youth and them developing into great leaders or student athletes or whatever it may be. And man, I believe the age has nothing to do with it. And you have young people that are called to do great things at some of the youngest ages. Being that we don't know how long we're gonna be here regardless, so who's to say that I'm so young?
I use this quote by the great Nipsey Hussle: "The best teacher in life is your own experiences. None of us know who we are until we fail. They say every man is defined by his reaction to any given situation. So who you want to find you? Someone else or yourself? Whatever you do, homie, give your heart and stay strong. You're never too young."
Honestly, ain't nobody like us. Like, ain't nobody like us in the entire city, in the entire area. Ain't nobody like us. So us sitting under, and that's not saying that we hadn't learned from other people in the area, but as much so as sitting under somebody or pushing somebody else's dream, definitely, again, wouldn't say that it couldn't happen, but more so, like Tyree said, everything works in divine timing, divine power in general, just the alignment of we're the ones, to be honest, when we talk about our experiences professionally or the things we've seen going through the profession in general, and then even from our mindset. A lot of people told us that we couldn't do every single thing that we're doing right now. So a lot of that could have coddled us or even hindered us from being successful and making the headway or the amount of growth that we have in this time if we waited under somebody else or tried to, in a sense, mold ourselves after somebody else. This is literally something the city has never seen like us before.
For me, I agree with Trey. Nobody's like us. But we also live off this model that at our best, we still don't know it all. So we use that as to continue to learn, to continue to get better, continue to perfect our craft. But like Trey said, I mean, with our experiences, with our expertise of playing, you know, ball for 20 plus years since Pee Wee, you know, I don't mind helping somebody else build their dream, but I promise you in the midst, I'm gonna be building mine and ours. And that's kind of our approach when it came down to the gym. It was like, man, we got too much knowledge. We got too much expertise for us not to be able to do this thing ourselves. And then plus, like he said, the people that we did reach out to or wanted to come underneath literally was saying that we couldn't do what we was doing. So again, like he said, things happen in divine order. God has a way of showing you that he has the ultimate control and you have the strength that he's giving you. So after we found out that, you know, we was too young or we would never be able to do this, we started to prove people wrong.
Push. To be successful in Monroe, Louisiana is a lot of courage, a lot of heart to do what the normal don't do. You know, one situation or one instance can literally take you off track in our area as a whole. So it definitely takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith in yourself and what you want to do to be around the right thing. So if you have goals and aspirations, man, you definitely have to have a different kind of passion for getting what you see or reaching what you see.
To be successful in Monroe, again, like Trey said, you just gotta have courage. You gotta have a will. You gotta have some want to. You gotta be goal oriented, and you gotta stick to the script. Along with being a little bit more strategic on how you handle your business, how you carry yourself. So yeah, that's what I think that it takes to be successful in Monroe.
Simple enough. Why not Monroe? I like to say, man, we like the A of Monroe. I mean, of North Louisiana, where we basically have a hub that the potential is limitless for everything that we have, that we think about, that we can do, could do, should do. So a lot of times when people want to move away from home to start something or do something, to each its own. You definitely can get the resources or gain some knowledge or experiences going other places. But when it comes to bringing something full to the table, man, it's no market like home. Simple enough, just because a lot of those resources are not here. A lot of those areas that we want to grow or want to venture into, they're not in Monroe. So why wouldn't we do it here and have another kid that was just like you be inspired, give hope or see that you can make it straight from the crib?
Sorry?
For me, man, I'm gonna just reiterate what he said. Why not Monroe?
Look, my nigga, this is dedication. This is anti-hesitation. It's a real nigga celebration. It's a dime dedication.